Welcome to the From My Stand podcast with Matt Hinkle. Whether you are an avid hunter, a novice, or someone interested in the sport, Matt has a unique perspective to share. Sit back, relax, and kick your boots up as Matt shares what he's seeing from his stand.
Hi friends, thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Hinkle, and today we're talking about broadheads. So on this podcast, we've had a lot of discussions about equipment. We've talked a lot about bows, even the arrow and fletching setup that I use on my bows. And some of you have been asking about my broadhead preferences. So today we're going to talk a little bit about broadheads. Now, there's as many opinions out there about broadheads as there are broadheads. I mean, everything that's manufactured, somebody's using them, somebody buys them, likes them, and has success with them. So I'm really not here today to talk you out of anything that's working for you. If you found something that's working with your setup, keep using it. Don't let me or anybody else on the internet talk you out of doing what's working for you. But I will kind of share with you a little bit about my evolution with broadheads and what I am using these days. Now, what you can see here on this board, I've used all of these, and I'll tell you a little bit about each one of them. But if you got something that's working for you, that's just fine. Just keep it up. But there might be somebody out there that is new to the sport and you're trying to kind of feel your way through getting started with this. And so I want to, I'll give you my thoughts. And maybe if you're out there and you're already settled on what you do, but you're curious about what I do, I'll go ahead and answer that question in this episode. First of all, let me just talk about kind of how things have evolved for me with broadheads through the years. I started bow hunting. My first season was when I was 15, which would have been in 1996. So the mid 90s is when I got started, and my cat Stormy is wanting to get on the show, and she, if she gets up here, I don't want her getting cut on these broadheads. So I might have to shoo her away. But anyway, I got started hunting. My first bow season was in 1996. I was 15 years old. And I used that particular year, I used a bear whitetail hunter. I'm pretty sure it might have been a bear cub. I can't remember if it was called a bear whitetail hunter or a bear cub, but it was one of those bear youth models. It went to 45 pounds, which was legal weight in my state. And I remember that year I used Thunderhead 125s. Thunderhead 125s, 125 grain Thunderheads is what I used that year. I used Easton Game Getter aluminum arrows 2117 with like a 4-inch feather helical twist. Now the next season, and I don't have a Thunderhead 125 out here on the board, but the next year I used those Easton Game Getter 2117 aluminum arrows with the 4-inch feather helical twist. And I actually used, and this is the first broadhead I'm going to show you tonight, but I used the Bear Razorhead broadhead. And I've got one of those. It's an old one that I used to use. And you might notice on this broadhead, it has a flattened tip. The tip is flat. They said that the design for that was so that it would split bone. And then also, it's not represented out here tonight, but they made a bleeder blade that slipped in between the main part of the broadhead, which actually made this like a 4-blade broadhead. But I actually used to really like the Bear Razorheads and used them for several years. Did kill a couple of deer with them, and they did a really good job on deer. All right. In the late 90s, I did go through a phase where I used a recurve bow. and I did kill a couple deer with recurves. And with the recurve bow, I used a couple different things. First of all, I used this Zwickey. This is a Zwickey Eskimo without the bleeder blade. It's just the two blade. And that was a pretty good broadhead. I think I killed one deer with that. Also, very similar to that was the Bear razor head, and that is not vented. You know, this razor head has a vent in it. This razor head is solid, more like the Zwickey. Also, this is not out here on the board. I could not find one. I think I've got one around here somewhere, but I couldn't find it for this episode. But I also use the Zwickey Delta, which is, if you want to come in here and look at the Eskimo, the Delta, if you can imagine it, the blades just continue back and then they just go straight across. So this little cutout is not there on the Delta like it is on the Eskimo. But those are all really good broadheads. They all shot really good. Then for a little while, I shot Muzzy 100s. That's a 4-blade. Muzzy makes a really good broadhead. I've got nothing against Muzzy. I think I used it for a season or two, and I think I killed one deer with the Muzzy 4-blade. Then I remember this particular broadhead I used. These were made by Allen. And something I'm going to tell you on this podcast on a real regular basis is you don't have to have the best of everything in order to hunt. Sometimes people are made to feel like they have to have just the highest budget ever in order to be a hunter, and that's not really true. You can get by with budget stuff in your gear. I've done it. Most of us have had to do it. I mean, you know, most of us aren't made of money, and we've got to consider budget in our gear. Well, the year that I used the Allen Broadhead, I used them because they were cheap. I'm just going to be honest with you. This was a very cheap broadhead. And to be quite honest, I'm not a big fan of this broadhead. I bought 6 of them. I never bought any more. I used them for the 1 year. And here's what I learned. You need to be real careful where you use cheap stuff. I think in some pieces of equipment, you can get away with cheap things. I don't recommend cheaping out on broadheads. These just did not fly very good, at least not in my setup. And this particular broadhead did cost me a deer. They didn't shoot real good. I kind of went against my better judgment. It was one of those things where I said it shoots good enough, and it really didn't. But anyway, this is an Allen fixed blade, fixed 3-blade. I wasn't a real big fan. You can't really tell on the video, I'm sure, but the blades are just really thin and cheap, and they just didn't fly good. And I'm glad I missed the deer with it, because had I hit it, I'm not even sure what it would have done. So anyway, if you've had success with those broadheads, I'm not arguing with anybody about it. You can let me know in the comments, but I just wasn't a real big fan of that one. I went through a very short phase where I used mechanicals, and that's what this here is. This is a very early Rage, and I know people love Rage broadheads, and I am not here tonight to disparage Rage broadheads. I know a lot of people have had great success with them. Now, this was an early one that came out, and as you can see, it's a 3-blade. Um, and so I did use those for a season. I wasn't a huge fan. I think Rage has improved on this a lot since the early ones, but the blades fell out of their place. Like, you know, I put the arrow on the string and on the rest, and the blades just wouldn't stay in position. I had a hard time with keeping them in position, so I did not stick with the mechanicals. And but I went through that phase where I did use them. A lot of people use mechanical broadheads with great success. Rage is a very popular. Now, I do think the two blade Rage is the one that's really popular. I was using the three. Maybe if I would have used the two blade, I would have liked it better. Again, I'm not slamming mechanical broadheads. I'm not slamming Rage broadheads. I just used them for the one season. I did not kill anything with it. And that was kind of the end of that for me. The broadhead that I've used the most in my hunting career, and the one that I've killed definitely the most deer with, is this one right here. That is a Thunderhead 100. It's by NAP. And I told you that way back when, in the mid 90s, when I got started hunting, I used the Thunderhead 125 back in those days. And it was funny because now I use more poundage with a lighter broadhead. Back then I was hunting with less poundage and a heavier broadhead. And you say, well, why were you doing that? Well, because back when I first got started, when I was like 15, I was just using what my dad had. And my dad used Thunderhead 125, so I used Thunderhead 125s. Okay, that was really the reason for it. As the years went on and I continued in bow hunting, and I started killing deer with bows, I switched to the Thunderhead 100s. I really like the Thunderhead 100. It's been really good to me. The guys I hunt with have killed a lot of deer with them as well. So we've just had a lot of success. And I'm somebody that says, look, when you got something that's working, just stick with it. So I've had a lot of people ask me on this podcast, do I use mechanicals or fixed broadheads? I use fixed blades. Thunderhead 100, that's the broadhead for me. Also, some honorable mentions. The Montech broadheads are really popular. I have never bought Montecs. I haven't used them, but they're very popular. And so I know a lot of people use those and have had real great success with them. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, in this day and age that we live in, there's a lot of broadheads out there to choose from. I would say most important, find something that shoots good with your bow and arrow combo. Okay. Just find something that shoots good, because I will tell you this, any broadhead shot accurately is going to do a better job than a broadhead that is shot inaccurately. So find something that your bow shoots good, that pairs with your arrow good. That's the reason a lot of people are using mechanicals, because they just tend to fly a little bit more like a field point. But I will tell you this, you don't have to be afraid of a fixed blade. If your bow is tuned right, if your bow and arrow setup is tuned right, you're not going to have any trouble with a fixed blade broadhead. They're going to shoot good. In fact, the bow that I'm using these days, which is a Bear Whitetail Legend, my my broadheads and field points shoot right together, and I promise you they do. The field points and the broadheads shoot right together, so that's the sign of a very well tuned bow, very well tuned arrows, and so what I've got is really working for me now. The way I arrange my arrows in the quiver, so here I am, I'm holding the bow. What I always do is I always have a practice broadhead in my quiver, and it's always the furthest arrow away. So that is my practice arrow. It's my practice broadhead. I don't think it's a good idea. I just said that an accurate broadhead is the best broadhead. And I'll just add to that, a sharp broadhead is a good broadhead. Don't shoot at deer with a dull broadhead. That it won't be as humane a kill. So use a good sharp broadhead. So once I shoot a broadhead into a target, I don't use it on an animal unless I have a way to sharpen that broadhead or change the blades out. Okay. So this is my broadhead that is for practice, and I can shoot it into target over and over again. I'm not worried about how sharp it is. And it is an identical setup to the other four. So even though I have not shot this broadhead yet that I plan on shooting at a deer, it is an identical setup. It should shoot right with my practice broadhead. Then what I do is I just simply put my next arrow closest to me. So this is my number one arrow. This is my number two arrow, my number three arrow, my number four arrow. And if I need more than four, I'm in trouble. So I'll take those with me. They'll be in the truck. I'll have some extra arrows. But on my person, on my bow, this is what I carry. Now, some have commented about my arrow and fletching setup. And let's talk about that just real quick. So what I'm using this year is an Easton Carbon Legacy. So my arrows look like they're wood, but they're not wood. It's a imitation wood, but it's a carbon arrow. The number on that carbon is, I think it's 400. You probably can't see it. It's real faint on the arrow, but this is a 400. Then so these arrows are crested. That's what that white paint on the end of the arrow is. They're crested in white. And then I've got 4-inch shield cut feathers, helical twist, and then a Thunderhead 100 is my broadhead. Now, this is a little bit of a heavier setup than what a lot of guys are doing these days. A lot of hunters use the real small plastic vanes, and quite honestly, smaller broadheads than this. If it's a mechanical, they can get smaller and lighter than this. So this is kind of a heavy setup for in the modern day, but I know I'm sacrificing some speed with my setup, but this is a very stable combination. It shoots really good out of my bow. It flies straight, and the extra weight. I've always been, and again, this is a matter of opinion. Okay, I'm not trying to convince you to change anything that you're doing. If you're doing something that's working, don't change it because I said so. But I've always been a little bit more of a believer in stability and weight over speed. Okay. A lot of guys are really into speed. They want the fastest, just a hyper fast arrow. Really, I like a little bit heavier, a little bit of a harder impact. And so that's what I'm going after. And that's what I achieve with this bow, arrow, fletching, and broadhead combination. So that's what I'm taking into the field this year. Let me know in the comments what you use. Send me a picture if you want in the comments. Let me know what you're using. Hunting season is going on right now, so I hope you're having a good hunting season. So I've not been out yet. The season's been in for a week. Bow season's been in for a week. My wife had surgery, and so I've been a caregiver for her this first week of hunting season. But here in the next couple weeks, I plan on getting out. Honestly, I don't think I've missed too much. It's been like 85 degrees almost every day, so it's been a little unseasonably hot. I'm gonna wait on it to cool down a little bit, but I hope that you're having good success this year. If you have had success already, send us a picture. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll do the same as the season goes on. Well, that's all I got to say about broadheads tonight. Thanks for joining us today. I am your host, Matt Hinkle, and that's how I see it from my stand.
Thank you for listening today. Be sure to tell your buddies and follow us on your favorite podcasting platforms. Y'all take care.